The first step to implementing our player character selection system is to make the player characters selectable. Ideally, the player characters would start in a disabled state, and then when we select them with a mouse or with a finger touch on a mobile device, the players will be selected, they'll let the game manager know, and the whole game will start up. In actuality, most of this system is already in place. The scripts have been written so that the player will not be controllable and will not actually do anything if the game manager does not have a currently registered player. Therefore, if we remove the player value from the game manager, the character will automatically be in an inactive state. Let's see this work in action, or inaction as it were. If I select the game manager, I can see currently that the player is set to be the boy game object in our scene. If I click the circle selector to the right of that and choose none, and then hit play, I'm going to see two things. First, I'm going to see that the player is inactive. The player won't look at the mouse, and the player won't move when I press any of the keys. I'm also going to see a bunch of errors in the console. The camera is trying to figure out what game object it's supposed to follow, and it can't find anything. You'll remember that the camera finds its target based off the player property of the game manager script. For now, so that we don't get any of those errors in the console, let's disable that follow script on the camera. To disable the camera follow script, I'm simply going to click on the checkbox in the upper left-hand corner of the component. Now we shouldn't get any errors. Also, we really don't want any enemies spawning while we don't have a selected player. So I'm going to go to my spawn points game object, the parent game object of all of our enemy spawn points, and I'm going to disable it by clicking on the checkbox in the upper left-hand corner of the inspector. The Game Manager script has already been built with this functionality in mind. If we examine the Game Manager script in the inspector, we'll notice the Player Selection Properties section. The first value in the Player Selection Properties section is an enemy's spawner game object. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag this spawn points parent object over to the enemy spawner's property in the inspector. What this does is allows the game manager to turn our spawn points back on once we've selected a player. Now when I press play, we'll see that the player still doesn't move, but we also don't have any enemies spawned. The last thing I need to do is I need to tell the player that they can be selected, and when they are selected, they need to tell the game manager that they've been selected. To do that, we're going to add another behavior to our player. I've selected the boy game object, and I'm going to add a new behavior or a new script component. I'm going to click Add Component, Scripts, Player Select. The role of the Player Select script is twofold. First, this script tells the game manager when this player has been selected. Then the game manager can re-enable the enemy spawn points and the game can start. The second thing this script handles is what happens to the players that are not selected. This script will tell the other player that they have not been selected, and then on that player, the script will manage the behavior with which they leave the game. Namely, they'll fall to the ground and then pass through the ground and disappear. Now that the enemy spawn points are disabled, the game manager has a reference to those spawn points, and the game manager does not currently have a player assigned to it, let's see how the player select script starts our game up. I'll hit play, and again we'll see the player is stationary, not following the mouse and not moving. If I click on the player, however, our whole system will start up. We'll see that the player now follows the mouse and can be moved. We'll also see that the enemies will start spawning and chasing the player. Don't worry that the camera does not follow the player. We'll re-enable that feature in a later section.